Just to talk a little about Wasipur, because it sort of, in a sense, was a turning point in your career. It's really a landmark film in Indian cinema. After the Sholais and where there were all these bad guys and there were the good guys, and Wasipur suddenly sort of broke new ground, not only in the way it was made, the sense of the small town, but also in this kind of trope of about that we've always sort of been used to in Bollywood films. If you could talk a little about that, and where did Wasipur come from? Where did it
was
come
like,
from? For you, where did it
it's
come
very, I'll talk about my state of mind then. Because, today it's become so much larger than all of us. It's become so huge and there's so many stories around it. And sometimes you become lost in that. So for me, it was that phase where Udan had not come out. I had just made Devdi, and Gulal I had finished over 8 years. And we finished that film, and I wrote a movie that nobody wanted to produce, The Girl in Yellow Boots. For me, I needed to make that film to exorcise myself. So I started doing lots of commercials to put money together. At the same time, Vikram Motwani had to make Udan, which he has been struggling for 7 years, which Venu was supposed to shoot. And by the time it happened, Venu was busy. So Vikram had, and Udan, I was writing while I was shooting Gulal. So Vikram was with me on the set. I was writing the film, his film, and I was going and shooting my film. And he has been waiting around. And Vikram at that time just did not trust anybody. And he was very aggressive and angsty. And I said, nobody will produce his film. He's just such a troubled person, nobody will make his film. I said, your film won't be made till I don't become a producer. I said, I won't become a producer because my films are not releasing. So just sit at home. And that was a joke. And that joke turned out to be true. Because when my films came out and finally I got a chance, and after producing Amir, I said, let's do it at the lowest cost possible. And we somehow scraped together money. That was when Udan was being shot. I met this boy. I was also, my ex-wife was doing a play which I was producing because we had nothing else to do. And she was performing theatre, and I would stand outside as a producer because I was standing outside as a producer, a lot of people would come with their script. And I met this boy called Zishan who played Definite in the film. And he started pitching to me a kind of a rehashed version of City of God. And I was like, I've seen this movie. And he got very offended. He says, no, this is true. I said, but this is not true. I know this is true. This is a story from Brazil. And he said, no, I'll bring it to you. I'll bring proof for you. So what happened was, next day he came to me with lots of these newspaper cuttings. And he started showing it to me. I started reading it. What he had done was, he had taken City of God as a template and picked up real incidents to fit that template. When I started reading it, I said, where is the rest of it? I said, this is such a beautiful story in itself. It's beautiful in the sense because it was funny. Because these gangsters, I had never seen such idiotic gangsters. And I did not want to do an underworld film. So I said, but these people are idiots. And I was also, at the same time, so many things happened at the same time. I was free. I was amused by these people. I told him, go and do research. I want the entire story. So he said, what he came to me was essentially part of part 2. I said, I want the entire story, the whole origin, everything. I also said that because at around the same time, 2 years before that, I saw a movie called The Best of Youth. I saw it in New York. I was teaching there, and Best of Youth was a 6-hour movie that tells a story set in Italy. It uses all the political events over a period of time to tell a personal story, which I thought was very interesting. Because this was suddenly like, through that one movie, I understood what Italy was all about. Those are the people who, writers and people involved with that film ended up doing Gomorrah and all those other movies. But best of it is this fascinating movie. And I was like, there's a chance there to tell these stories of these gangsters who fought over a strip of a road. We made the film look bigger, but Wasipur is just a colony. It's a strip of a road. And over 6 decades. And through that 6 decades, I can also tell the story of North India through the political changes. That was also the same time I discovered the new Tamil cinema. I saw Parthiveeran, I saw Nan Kadavul, and Subramaniapuram. And Subramaniapuram was, for me, it kind of resonated with Wasipur, because these are the people who are obsessed with cinema. And they act like the screen heroes. And Subramaniapuram had a bit element of that in the film. Everybody was like fascinated by Rajnikant and imitating him. So all these things happened simultaneously. And I felt like there is something there. And with that belief, what is something there, I took, Zishan came with a 150-page novella that he had written. And I went with that to Madrid because my ex-wife was shooting for Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara in Spain. I got a free ticket. So because I got a free ticket, I went all the way to Spain. I parked myself in Madrid in a hotel. And I sat down and I wrote till what came out was part 1. And that's how it all started. And then the problem came of like I wrote such an expansive movie and we had no money. And studios insisting on casting big stars, and I did not want big stars because it was a very rooted film. And my confidence also came from watching Subramaniapuram and Nan Kadavul and all these films where they were new actors. And what Nan Kadavul did to me was I saw Banaras, where I've grown up, from Bala's eyes. When I saw Banaras from Bala's eyes, I realized Satya was Bombay from Ram Gopal Verma's eyes. And from an outsider's perspective, the city is it's seen very differently. So what it did to me was, because we did not have any money and we changed studios last moment, so I went back to where I grew up. Because my father had a lot of goodwill. I used all his years of goodwill in one film. So all the mines and everything and all the powerhouses and the house I grew up in, it's now a ghost town. I shot there. Everything from, so I reinterpreted the story of Wasipur through my own childhood and what I saw and what I remembered, and used all my father's goodwill, and so we managed to make a massive film in that smaller budget. And all that came in was very organic, because at the same time we shot in places where films were not shot. So like when we're shooting in a village called Ahrora, and we're shooting that sequence where Sardar Khan is throwing bombs in every house. And we had very excited Shyam Kaushalji, who had just discovered this whole system of how to show bomb blasts. All the action directors get very excited when they find a new way to show something. So he was trying to say, sir, can we get 3-4 houses? And all the village volunteered. Mere ghar mein bhi ek bomb lagao. So everybody volunteered, and then suddenly it's like the whole village became our set and everybody was happy about it. So we had these massive shots of bomb blasts and this and I found out from my father, I need a coal mine shot where the whole mountain is going to be blasted. And he found out and says, 6 hours from here, there are these massive mines and they're going to blast the entire mountain tomorrow. So me and Rajiv Ravi and his assistant, we all went all the way there and we sat there and waited for it to blast. And if you see the shot, we have used the entire duration of the shot and we missed the beginning. Because the moment it started, we put the camera on. We missed the beginning, we set up the shot. So in all the sand mining shots, they're actual documented proof that there was sand mining happening. We shot everything, and my second unit was Shlok Sharma and Vicky Kaushal. And Vicky and Shlok would always get arrested for going in there and taking shots that were illegal, and all the stealing coal shots and things that you see from a distance from a tele camera, they're all real things happening. We would wait there and watch them and shoot them. So it's kind of, it all came together somehow. We had no clue what it will become. And
I would like to ask, there's a kind of masculinity in that phase of your filmmaking, which one is seeing is now kind of changing with time. Can you talk a little about that? And where did, really, Wasipur, all these films are really
all those films,
yeah.
All those films are very representative of the world I came from. Because the world I come from is extremely patriarchal. But once you step inside the house, there's a matriarch there. But it's inside the house. So it's like both are pretending to be like my grandmother would be like, oh, you do whatever outside the house. Inside the house, I'm the boss. So my grandfather would always sit in the porch. He would never step in because he had no say there. So he would stay out and he would smoke a hookah and pretend to be like the boss of the house, and he was scary to us. But inside it was the grandmother who would like take care of us. So that's what I did with the film in the sense. It was like inside the house, he's scared of Nagma. Outside the house, he's all macho. But when it comes to, he just did not know how to stand up to them. And I just kind of took that and translated into it. But slowly over a period of time, what happens is, the world has gone through so much change, and it starts to change you as well. I have a daughter who's been growing up, who's the next generation, who questions everything, who sits with me and talks about everything. I had a partner who would question all things I would have done in the film. And I faced that a lot of time because in the beginning when I was making Devdi, everybody was like, all the men were like, what kind of a world is this? What kind of film it is? It's the women who stood up for the film. And it came from them. And you have to listen. Because, they're coming from a place. They're coming from a place. And if you really see, and if you want to see, you will see. So I think it's the people around you that change you over a period of time. It's like it doesn't matter how much you change. This time and again, there's something that will come out of your mouth or some action of yours, and somebody will point out that, see, there's still a little bit of patriarchy left in you. And they start pointing that out. And that's how slowly it chips away. Because it's a conditioning from the childhood. But you can't hold on to it because, you think this is your defense system.
So you are conscious of this.
I'm very conscious. I'm very, very conscious, and I'm very aware of it when somebody points it out. And I also see it around me, and I know now today if I see where it comes from. I see it in my family, and I see where it comes from. I see it very deeply entrenched in my family. And my world, and where I'm banned today, I can't go back to my home because, but it is there.
What about, just to sort of change tracks, music? You saw Kumati yesterday and you said, my God, that music.
Yeah, Kumati was one of the most incredible music I've heard.
So music is such an essential part of your films. Songs are such an essential. And of course, soundscape, of course, but just a little bit about your use of music, the importance of music. Also because it's a question because a lot of people in the West, where you are very highly accepted, a lot of festivals, etc., this whole notion of the Indian film with music is very puzzling.
No, but it has happened gradually because I could not make movies without music. When I started to make movies, I love music on the other. So when I started doing my first film, there's so much pressure about what music do we have? And I wrote a script that actually had no music initially. And it wasn't supposed to be a rock band in Panch. It was supposed to be people who were part of a Shadi Wala band. But you know what happened? I was desperate to make a film. So I was like, okay, fine, let's compose music. I did not know where I'll put the music in the film. So the songs were composed. And songs were composed based on that. I said, okay, let's make them a rock band, because I could not still come to this place where suddenly my actor starts singing. So they had to be a singer. So which is why every time I've done a lip sync song, the actor is playing a singer or something. Otherwise, and that's why Nawazuddin does an emotional touch. And I started using music as a part of a background narrative, because I could not bring myself to do that. Suddenly somebody starts singing and becomes and so everybody, because they had to be human beings with their flaws first. And which is why my heroes don't suddenly become machos and heroes and things like that. So it started with that. And my first film, literally, it was like, okay, fine, let's get done with your songs and then I'll start my story. So which is why you see 4 songs back to back and then the film begins. And then Black Friday, there was no such pressure, which was very good for me. And then I realized that I needed to use this in a way where my films can get made and I get to do what I wanted to do. So Piyush Mishra became my biggest weapon when I was doing Gulal. A lot of things I wanted to say, I used his songs and his poetry, because he's primarily a poet and then a singer and then a musician. So it became very political poetry, and I made him, and he doesn't want to be a poet or a singer and musician. At that time he wanted to be an actor. So in exchange I had to give him a role. His role was not part of the script. But he said, I will not give you my poetry and I will not compose songs for you if you don't make me act. So then I was like, how do I make him act? Then we had to devise a way to use him in a way where he becomes the poet in the film. And it's his voice. And so because he got a role to act in, he composed the music. And we made this film over a period of time. And in that process of Gulal, I figured my ways of doing things. And then when the film was banned, and I kind of went through a very bad divorce, and I did not have a home to stay. So that's when I went to USA, because I got a teaching job. And in the USA, I met a musician who took me to these underground music sessions where I discovered Brooklyn Qawwali Party. They're like a bunch of 17 Polish musicians singing Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. Then I met lots of these bands, and I saw a lot of underground music, and I was like, you know what, there's something happening there. And I met this musician called singer Shilpa Rao. And I told Shilpa, you know, I've heard this eclectic music there. And most of them were people from India and Afghanistan and Pakistan. And she said, yeah, we also have a scene like that here. And that's where Amit Trivedi came in. And that's when I met Amit Trivedi. And he was also a Rahman fan who was playing the college circuit. And secretly, all these musicians would get together and jam. Yeah, all of them. Everybody who's a singer. And Amitabh Bhattacharya wanted to be a singer. He didn't want to be a songwriter. But they had no other songwriter. So he ended up being a songwriter. So I think that's how all of it came together. And we were all outcasts and outsiders. And so it was easier for us to get together at that time. And then, because I can't sing, and because I really did not care much about what mainstream music did for films, I was willing to experiment and listen to new things and listen to newer people. And all those new people also comes in because we didn't have budgets for established people. So also in the beginning, you know, casting new actors, getting newer musicians and newer technicians was because established people cost us a lot of money and we did not have budgets. So over a period of time, it kind of created a system where a lot of people kind of started coming in together. Also, all of this happened at the same time alongside PFC. And PFC was the blog that kind of brought all filmmakers together. So all of these things happened between 2005 to 2010. And that's when I think somehow a lot of minds came together. That's where I found Vasan Bala, Ghewan, Anand Gandhi was writing, Chaitanya Tamane was there, everybody was there. And that kind of a blog post changed the scenario. Everybody was an individual voice. Nobody was like iconizing or idolizing anyone else. They all spoke their mind, and it became a platform where we met actors, musicians, everything. So that phase was very eclectic.
And then to ask you about Thelma, suddenly you come to Bombay Velvet, which is of course a debatable film, let's say. But you worked with one of the greatest editors.
No,
and this whole idea of, where you talk so much about it being organic and all of you just growing together, and then suddenly this kind of element, how you could...
For me, Bombay Velvet was one of my most passion projects. I really wanted to do it for the longest time. Started back in 2006. But what happened was, we wanted to do it a certain way, but after Vasepur, everything kind of became too massive. And because there's so many rejections, we started Phantom, the studio, and the investment suddenly was huge. Everybody wanted to do what we wanted to do. And a film that should not have cost that much money became an expensive film. I have done Recce for it over 6 years, that I'll shoot parts of it in various countries, wherever. Bombay was built by Portuguese. So I went wherever the Portuguese went. We traced the entire route of the Portuguese during the colonization. And we found places across the world which looked like parts of which could be used to shoot like Bombay. Because we did not have, and that's how we planned to shoot it. The studio came in, so much money got invested in, the big stars came in, it kind of went out of hand. And because there's something, and before that what had happened was, a lot of things happened, because my films were banned. So Danny Boyle happened to see Black Friday around 2006 on a pirated DVD. And he borrowed a lot of crew from it. And when the film Slumdog Millionaire came out, he talked about my work a lot. So because of which, I think Marco Muller, when he came to India, he came to see my movies. And what he did was, in 2009, he picked up 2 of my released movies, Devdi and Gulal, and put them in Venice and put me on the jury. And slowly things started to happen. So I was in the jury of Venice, and suddenly everybody started watching my movies. And then somebody sent my films to Martin Scorsese. And then what happened was, he found time after 3 months to see the film. But he asked me to drop the film. Sorry, somebody spoke about my films and he asked me to drop the films, and I was not traveling. So I asked Gunit Monga to drop the films. The films were dropped at his house. And after 3 months, out of the blue, I get this letter from him. And he loved the films, and then I got invited to his jury. So I went there and spent time with him and realized he's collected a bunch of filmmakers he liked from across the world. That's where I met Sorrentino and Fatih Akin and everybody, and Park Chan-wook, and we all became a gang of friends. So he is such a generous man, and I realized the filmmaker of his, he's such a generous man, he watches everything and every film. So when we were making Bombay Velvet, and Fox Studios had started to produce it, suddenly going from making films with no budget, to Fox wanting to produce my films, to being the biggest budget film of India. So suddenly everybody was on my head. My editing room used to be full of people. And one day they said that we need to get some Hollywood editor to edit the film. And I was very scared. And they were trying to get somebody who had done films like Dumb and Dumber and all that. So I went running to New York. Me and Vasan Bala, we ran to New York to meet Martin Scorsese. I said, help. So that's what happened. He said, help. And he asked Thelma and he sat on the edit. He would sit, and I left my editor there. I got out of the room because I was very attached to the film. It would have been hard, even though if anybody sat on it. So, and because it was a studio film, it wasn't my call anymore. And that's why I decided after that I've never made a studio film. That's one of the key reasons I've never made a studio film. And he told me one thing. He says, when the budgets are higher, the editing room becomes very democratic. And the one place that should not be democratic is the edit room. And he said, you need to either find a big star who's got your back. And he said, I had Bobby De Niro as who got my back, and today I have Leo who's got my back. Who has your back? And I was like, I have nobody. I have Nawaz. And then it was like, then you should not do big budget films. So, and then that's when after that I again stopped doing the studio films.
But what was that experience like? I'm curious because I'm an editor.
And that was a thing just to save an kind of a version of a film that we did not want to be out there. It's still like there's a different versions. My co-writer of Bombay Velvet, who I had not met since the film came out, because everybody went into depression. I met him at Iffk. I've been hanging out with him. He must be somewhere there. Or not there, I don't know. Tanika, where is he? No, he's not there. So I met him, suddenly I was sitting on the stage on the first day and I saw him sitting in the crowd. I said, this is where he has disappeared to. That's what it does to you when something goes wrong.
Okay, last question and then we'll open it out to the audience. Tell us about, actually there are two questions. One is this whole change now to Netflix and lust stories and ghost stories and so on. How has that changed you as a filmmaker? What does something like Netflix do?
See, because earlier, most of my films were seen by people after they downloaded it. So, because they did not have big stars. They went to the festivals. They did not last in cinemas. And students, especially students and working people saw my films and they would download the films because there was no other platform. So when Netflix came into being, it helped me the most. Because all the films that could not be monetized suddenly started getting monetized. And what had happened was, when Vasipur had come out, Netflix had just started. And Netflix people saw Vasipur and they serialized it. So in 2013 in the US, Vasipur was released as a 6-part mini-series on Netflix. And as a trial. So they used it as a first foreign language series. And we edited it and sent it to them, and for a very little amount of money. And within 20 days they got back and they said, like, we want to extend the contract. And on Facebook, I got a message from Eric Barmack in 2014, the head of Netflix. I want to work with you. So much before Netflix came out to India, they had been talking and they reached out to us. But finally when they came in and Sacred Games happened and everything, there's a lot of support. This is a lot of creative support till Tandav happened. So in the sense, everything that could not be seen suddenly now can be seen there. Because of Netflix, my film has kind of come back to life. Every film has found a life again.
But
and it's also getting monetized.
Is there a different grain in this work that you do?
No.
No?
No.
You don't think so?
No, not now. Because the thing is, like, we make it the same way, but now the problem is you can't do it. It's not different grain. You just cannot do. My one experience taught me that. My last film that came out, because of the political atmosphere in the country. So everybody's kind of scared. So there's a lot of fear. Because of that fear, and because they don't know that how do they tell us, so they just kind of avoid us. So it's difficult. It's difficult now in the sense either you cater to a certain, pander to a certain kind of a mindset, or you just avoid and do something else. That's what it is.
Okay, last question. From all the films you've made, from everything you've done, tell me some moment, some shot, something from your own work that you treasure?
No, I don't know.
Something.
I don't
A
know.
shot.
I somehow
A master shot you love.
no, there's no. I think the best shot in every film is always sacrificed.
Yeah, that's what editors do.
That's what it is. I don't know. In the sense, sometimes I crave to go back in time. In the sense, I like the way everything happened in life. I today I look back and I'm like, I was lucky. I was banned for 7 years because it really taught me how to survive and do things and I found a perspective because it made me travel the world a lot. I did not have a passport before I made my first film. I made my passport and I traveled the world. I traveled and because I was often told, why are you making films like the way you make them? Nobody wants to watch it. And because Black Friday had premiered at Locarno and I had seen the reaction there and then it got banned here. So I was like, I remember people liking my film. It was also shown at Mami that year and people liked the film. I was like, why is everybody telling me not to make them? That curiosity made me travel. And I traveled across the world. I traveled with the pirated copies of my own film. And I would give it away to people. And that was a journey that has come in good stead for me. And I'm grateful for all that. But one thing that, because of all the problems that I faced, you also start to get to learn how to handle things. But that state of mind I made Black Friday in, I was just not aware. I read a book, I read a manuscript. I was like, this story has to be told because I had not heard that story before I read it. I did not see that perspective before I read it. So what impacted me, I just directly translated it on screen. There's nothing, no cleverness there. There's no filmmaker who came in and tried to do anything with the truth of it. Over a period of time, I've lost that. Over a period of time, you become smarter, clever. I know how to handle people. I know my way around the censor board. I know my way around the studios. I know my way around how to handle things. And somehow in that, the truth is not 100% truth. That I miss sometimes. When I lie down, I look at the roof and I was like, will I ever be able to do that again? And I know the answer is no.
No, of course you will. I mean, getting wiser is part of the human existence also. You can never be a child always. So.
But I like films made by children.
Okay,
I like first-time filmmakers because there's a kind of a question there, the questioning there. There's a kind of quest there. There's a kind of you see their soul in it. They're very honest. There's some kind of an honesty there.